Hello. Today I'm going to tie for you what is essentially a hare's ear nymph. There are a couple little differences that you'll see as we go along, and one of them is a pair of legs that angle back like the wings on an F-15. So I added that to the name. So here I'm going to kind of pan through or display in the video my fly boxes. You'll see a couple of rows of nymphs with legs. Those are Lively Legz, and they're a pretty cool product, come from guys that live near me and here in Pennsylvania. And I think they add a bugginess and more of a lifelike look to some nymphs. So I'm quite fond of them. And then you'll see there are other flies. I'm not one-dimensional, and I've been looking through these fly boxes as I fill them for examples of things I can share with you guys. So here we're looking at a pheasant tail nymph with Lively Legz tied in, and it has a nice profile. And you'll see on a size 14 there are only room for about 2 pair of these legs, although when you buy them there are 3 pairs. So the last pair I was cutting it off and throwing it away, which bothered me. So I found a use for it. Now here we're inserting a size 14 Lively Legz lip splitter hook in the vise. I'll show you that in a second. Those guys have a website and they sell a number of products, everything from nymphing rods to these Lively Legz and other fly tying materials. They don't sponsor me. I don't get anything from it. I just like some of the stuff they do, and they're close to home, so I support them. And like I said, this is a hare's ear nymph, so take a good look at those dark barred guard hairs on the face. We're going to use those for a tail. I like to rib this fly with the Sulky HOLOSHIMMER in gold. I think it adds a dimension to the fly above what wire might do. This fly is going to have bead chain eyes. We're after that stone clinger profile, wide in the front, narrow as you go back. Now typically we tie in those first 2 pair of legs in a normal nymph pattern, and then this part that I'm showing now is the part we throw away. So here, let's start our thread about 1/3 of the way back from the eye. Snip off the excess. And like I said before, I like to tie something in on the way back so there aren't as many layers of thread. In this case, I'll tie in the Sulky, and I'll force it to the far side. And that way when I start to rib this fly, it won't upset the tail. It'll come underneath first and wrap back up in front of the point. And here you see a little clump of those barred guard hairs from the hare's mask. Now set them on top. I'm going to keep them rather short for this pattern. Work my way back, kind of hold them toward my side because they'll spread above and across as you go. And wrap back forward. And you'll notice I didn't put the bead chain eyes in first. Sometimes I do, but in this case, I don't know, I get a better sense of where they should be and what the overall profile and shape and size of the fly is going to be with the tail in. So sometimes I just tie them in second. There's no wrong way. So crisscross a couple of times. Stay above the hook and come underneath a couple of times just to tighten things up. And then make sure they're parallel and perpendicular, and add a little head cement. This is another thing too. I think with those tail fibers in place and that underbody of thread already there, it kind of makes that act as one unit, and I'm hoping that the eyes don't twist like they do on some flies. So we took some of the lighter colored, softer dubbing from the Hare's mask and going to make a noodle a couple inches long. There's nothing that dubs easier than rabbit fur or Hare's mask dubbing. So there, I work my way back to just in front of the tail, coming forward, trying to build a little bit of a taper. Actually, a pretty good taper on this fly if you can. Because if you've turned over a few rocks, you'll remember that those mayfly nymphs that cling to the bottom, they have that triangular shape. So another noodle, a couple inches, get up to the eyes and then work my way back. I want to stop back a little bit. This is where the ribbing will end, and it's where I'll tie in my wing case. So I'll put a whip or two here just to keep things in place. Use the bobbin cradle because I'm going to use the rotary feature of this vise. And the first wrap came underneath, like we said. You have to keep them close enough together to get a couple of them to show. And we'll stop and tie it off. Snip off the excess. Here I'm just going to use some peacock fiber, and I took it from the left side. It's not the good solid stuff that you would use for legs. I just want this to be the wing case. So I just need a little clump of fibers to add color and some modeling and look like a wing case. I'll tie them in up next to the eyes, work my way back. And here we are with that little stub of Lively Legz, the last two. And two things here. One is it's nice to have a decent diameter body underneath, or these things will fold around the hook and they won't look right. They'll actually angle down instead of more like outriggers, more like legs. And it only takes about 2 crisscrosses to hold them in place. They're not going to fall out. Then we have to trim off that little stub. And that might have been the hardest part right there. Now I'll make another dubbing noodle. The end of it's off camera, but if I recall, this one is about 3 inches long. Nice and thin. We want to take a number of wraps and go in between all the appendages here and make sure that everything's covered. So once we get started, we can use the rotary feature again. I like to rotate this and see so that I know that everything underneath is covered up. And a couple of crisscrosses between the eyes and finish in front. And I did leave a little room up there in front. I like to do that. You'll see when I go to tie down the wing case. I think I've done this on another fly, but I tie it down over and then I work my way back a little bit and make a little, kind of a little knob, almost a little bump there. So we pulled our pheasant tail fibers over. We'll wrap up to the just behind the hook eye. There I pull it back and I put about 2 or 3 wraps here. And then come behind what's the stubs of the fiber or the pheasant tail and get behind the eyes. And that's where I finish the fly, kind of in that shoulder behind the eyes. So a couple of wraps to hold it, and then we're going to add a whip finish here. So snip off the excess thread. And then this is the other little feature that I leave on this fly. It's kind of a wing bud. So I snip it on an angle, back a little bit. I think there's a long fiber on the side toward me, and I'm going to snip it out of the way too. But that little mohawk looking thing on the back is another feature. It may look like a cripple or an emerger or something else, but it just kind of separates this fly from all the other bugs on the water. And a generous amount of head cement between the eyes. And a little bit underneath because I have some wraps exposed, thread wraps exposed. And then, like other hare's ear nymphs, you want to give it a little brushing and get some fuzz going in all directions and give it that buggy look. That's pretty much it. It's more or less a hare's ear nymph. Added in the bead chain eyes to get the triangular profile. The legs because I didn't want to throw them away, but they add something. And that little mohawk of a wing bud. So here's some information, the materials list and some descriptive material below. And thanks for hanging in there this long. And if you want to learn more about me, look me up on Amazon. Until next time, be safe.